Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
A very warm welcome and good evening to all of you on Zoom. Nice to see you. So today's topic, the power of togetherness. You know, when I was growing up, I come from a family that was always known for its togetherness. My parents migrated to the U.S. in 1960, and it was a time when there were very few Indians. So the few that they were, my dad had come here to study, so there were about 15 of them who had come to do their engineering degree. They all kind of banded together and became friends, and then they all got married and stayed close. And then all of them started having children, which is my generation. And we all grew up together, and we all grew up in each other's houses. So this is now 1970, and here we are, very few Indians all living in North Jersey. And we grew up in each other's homes. Our homes were always unlocked. We could go in and out of anyone's home, and there was never a question. It was totally fine and acceptable. And for me, being an only child, it was nice to be able to be in other people's families, in their homes, eating with them, sleeping over their houses, and vice versa. So our house was always known as Grand Central Station. Like a train station, the doors were always open, and people would just come and go, come and go. And all through school and even through college, I went to NYU. I went to New York University, and I'd come home on the weekends. But I had a lot of friends who, because it was not a public school, it was a private university, there were students from all over the country, and some were even foreign students from abroad. So they didn't have a home to go to on the weekends, so they'd come home with me on the weekends. And I can always say that from the time I can remember, there was never a shortage of food. No matter who came, my mom always had enough food, and everybody left full. And so, to me, that was togetherness. Growing up in a very tight-knit family environment where we were just a unit and we were always together. But after coming on the spiritual path, I learned that togetherness is so much more. Togetherness is actually a very spiritual quality, and we at the Brahma Kumaris will even go so far as to say that togetherness is a collective elevation. So when souls come together with a very pure aim, with a very pure objective, something greater than the individual effort is created. And that's the power of togetherness. When the pure aim and the pure objective is greater than the individual effort. And when we see each other as souls, when we remember that we all share the same Supreme Father, that's when a very natural bond is created. And that awareness of that bond that we all share together with the one common Father, that awareness is what removes a lot of the negativity, like competition, like ego. We don't compare, we don't criticize. Basically, we're not separate. We're all in this together. And what's even better about this quality of togetherness is that when we all walk together with this same awareness, that's when the power multiplies. So today, I'd like to explore a very simple shift in consciousness. It's a very small shift in language, actually, but it's a very powerful shift in consciousness. And that shift is basically changing one letter. So we're going to shift from the word me to we. So by just changing this one letter, everything changes. So what is me consciousness? When we are in me consciousness, we will be having thoughts like, this is my idea, my feelings, my opinion, my role, my responsibility, my success. These are all the kinds of things that we will be feeling and thinking if we're in me consciousness. And it all sounds fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's no harm in having those thoughts. In fact, individuality is important. But that word me, what it does is it creates a kind of very subtle separation between you and others. And then a wall will go up. And what happens is it starts to lead to the things I described earlier, like comparison and competition. And then all of a sudden you'll start to hear all these quiet whisperings inside your mind. And you'll start hearing things like, I have more experience than you. I'm your mother. I know what's best for you. You know, or like, my way works better than yours. You know, for example, there's an aim or a purpose that every family has for their children and for their family. And usually that aim for any parent is that they'd want their children to be well educated, to go to a really good school, and to ultimately, you know, get good jobs and be successful. But because you're operating with this me consciousness, you will start to have these thoughts like, why aren't they listening to me? I told them to apply to this school. You know, I'm older, I have more experience, I know more than they do. And these thoughts actually start to become bigger and bigger. And then what happens is they take over that ultimate goal or that ultimate purpose. And that purpose or that aim was that your kids should be successful. But now that got pushed aside. So the moment we operate from this me consciousness, we're actually losing all our power because we're no longer together. Now there's disunity. And what happens? The family is divided and you're no longer working towards that goal. It's not an obvious thing. It's actually a very subtle thing. But subtle disunity can be very, very draining. You know, let me ask you a question. Have you ever, like for those of you who work, have you ever been on a team where everyone was talented, but you could tell that the energy just felt heavy? No one openly, you know, disagreed. You weren't arguing. There wasn't anything of that sort, but something felt off. That is me consciousness at work. You know, everyone's protecting their space, everyone's guarding their identities, and everyone's basically separate from the whole. So when we operate from me, we may move forward, but we move forward alone. So that's me consciousness. So now let's change to what we're striving towards, which is we consciousness. Now, we does not mean that we're losing identity. It doesn't mean that we're suppressing our individuality. It doesn't mean that we're no longer allowed to express our unique self. It just means that we're expanding it, and we're allowing our responsibility to expand a little. In me consciousness, the thought would be more like, that's not my responsibility. But in we consciousness, the thought would be, how can I help? Right? It's a big difference between saying that's not my responsibility and now you're saying, how can I help? And what happens? The energy immediately changes. And the problem now becomes a joint problem, a group problem, a collective problem. And so now the solutions also become a collective problem. A collective solution. So in we consciousness, your role complements mine, and your strength strengthens me, and your success supports our aim. It's so beautiful, right? And instead of just being alone in this me conscious state of mind, why wouldn't you want to be in a we conscious state of mind? It just makes sense. Instead of saying, how do I shine? You would be saying, how do we succeed? Instead of saying, how do I protect my position? The thought becomes, well, how do we protect the aim? And something very beautiful happens when you're in a we conscious state of mind. There's no ego. There's no insecurity. All that is gone. All the comparisons and all the criticisms, they all disappear. Because now the focus shifts to that one aim and that one purpose and that one goal. And basically, the atmosphere becomes light. You can tell when a family or a team is operating with we consciousness. We saw in the Olympics. I don't know how many of you watched the Olympics for the last 3 weeks, but that was a beautiful example of what we consciousness is all about. And when you saw the awards, even though there was only one gold winner, you would see that the bronze and the silver winners were also applauding the gold winner, even though their dream was stolen, their dream was lost to win. But that doesn't matter. We still win, right? Because there's a gold winner that won, and that means that person's success is their success as well. So when we consciousness, there's more camaraderie, there's more listening, there's more appreciation, there's less defensiveness, and there's less politics. There's basically less tension. So we consciousness creates a safety net, you could say, like a psychological safety net. And when souls feel safe, what happens? They give their best, right? So basically in we consciousness, the truth is that we does not begin outside. It has to begin inside, right? If I am insecure, then I will cling to me. And if I'm seeking validation and approval, and I'm seeking, people's appreciation for me, I'm only going to cling to me. If I'm attached to recognition, I'm going to cling to me. But what happens when I'm full? When I know who I am as a peaceful soul, as a child of the Supreme Father, then I don't need to dominate. I don't need to feel insecure. In fact, I'm going to collaborate, and I'm going to want to bring others with me. So true togetherness comes from one of the many qualities that, we know that the soul innately has. But the one quality that true togetherness is born from is self-respect. When I am stable in my self-respect, I'm no longer threatened by someone else's strength. In fact, I can celebrate it. When I am secure and I'm comfortable in shifting from me to we, I can actually empower anyone and everyone around me. And then something magical happens. That's when a group of souls shift from me to we, and the entire collective power multiplies. And what happens when power multiplies? Progress accelerates. This is not just a spiritual idea. This is, it's actually a universal law. And it operates in nature. It operates in science, and it operates in industries. And I'm going to give you one really nice example. It's with nature. So scientists have studied that geese, you know how they go south for the winter, right? They escape the cold. And so during their long migrations, scientists have done a lot of research, and you probably would have noticed that when they're flying down south, they do something like a V formation. And it looks really simple. It's just a V. It's really decorative, and it's quite pretty. And the truth is that there's actually like really extraordinary intelligence behind it. Because when the geese fly in that V formation, each bird is creating an uplift of air for the one behind it. Because of that aerodynamic advantage, the geese can actually fly up to 70% further together than if each goose was to just fly alone. It's really amazing. 70% further just because they're flying in this alignment. So now just think about it, right? Individually, each goose has strength, but together, aligned, their strength multiplied to the point where they are able to go 70% further. So now many times in life, think about yourself. Do we try to fly alone? We rely on our own effort all the time, and we carry all that pressure on our own. But nature and these geese, they're teaching us something else. They're teaching us that alignment reduces the pressure, it reduces the resistance, and that togetherness reduces that strain. And there's even some more beautiful things about this story. So now, the goose that's at the front of the V, the one who's leading the V, he's working the hardest. I'm saying he, but I don't know, it could be she. That goose is working the hardest because that goose is facing all the wind resistance, right? So what happens? That goose can't stay in that position permanently for the whole migration. So what happens is when that goose gets tired, it very quietly moves back into the formation and another goose takes the lead. So there's this rotation. But there's no argument. There's no insecurity. There's no, hey, I'm the boss. I'll tell you when you can go, right? There's no competition. The leadership is basically shared. So now, imagine if we lived like that. Sometimes I lead, sometimes I step back, sometimes I support. Because we're all heading in the same direction, right? It's a shared purpose, it's a shared aim. So why not? Why wouldn't I just take a step back and let somebody else take the lead? So now here's another thing about this story. As they're flying, you'll hear it, and you've probably heard it many times. What do? They make a lot of noise. The geese are honking. They're like honk, 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 honk. And that's what makes you look up in the air and you see, oh, there's this really pretty V that's moving in the sky. They're honking. But what researchers discovered is that they're honking to give the one in the front encouragement. Right? They're honking at the ones in the front. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Again, they're not criticizing. They're not saying, oh, you're so slow. We're never going to reach Florida. We're going to be stuck in New Jersey all winter. You're doing it all wrong. They're not saying any of that. They're just signaling support. The honking is nothing more than just encouragement for that flock to sustain the leader. So now, in our own lives, think about it. Are our words like honking geese? Are we encouraging those who are carrying responsibility? Or do we end up creating more pressure for the ones who are trying to lead us? Togetherness is not a silent agreement. It's an active way of supporting. Think about that. Togetherness is an active way of supporting. And now the last part of this story. This is my favorite part of the story. And it's probably the most touching part of the story. If a goose becomes sick or injured, and it falls out of the formation, two other geese will also leave the formation, and they'll follow that sick goose down. And those other two geese will stay with the sick goose until that injured goose recovers or until it ultimately passes away. Only then will those two geese try to catch up with the other formation, or they'll join another formation. But the point is this: they will not abandon that sick goose. They don't say, oh, we must keep moving, forget him, sacrifice him, let him go, he'll figure it out. No, they stay together. So not just flying together when everything is smooth, but even staying together when somebody is struggling. So supporting when someone is weak, waiting when someone is tired, that's a huge thing. And so what do these geese teach us? That alignment multiplies strength, that leadership can rotate, and that encouragement pushes the team forward, and that last part about loyalty, not abandoning someone that needs help, that defines true unity. So, If birds can practice togetherness and do it so naturally, then surely we, as conscious souls with awareness and wisdom and spiritual knowledge, we can practice that even more beautifully because we are aligned with one aim, and we support each other and we rotate responsibilities without egos. And when we do all that, we don't just move forward, we actually soar. So now I want you to ask yourself, I'm going to ask all of you also on Zoom, I want you to think about some thought-provoking questions that I'm going to read out to you. And what I want you to do is check and see in which areas of your life do you think you're still operating from a me-conscious state of mind, or are you consciously able to shift the me to we? And remember, this is not a big obvious thing, it's a very subtle thing. But I want you to start to think about this. I'm going to read some questions to you. So in the V formation of your life, where are you right now? Are you at the front leading? Are you in the middle, supporting? Are you feeling tired, and do you feel like you're the one that needs support? These are just some questions I want you to think about. You don't have to write it down. I just want you to think as I'm asking you these questions. Are you flying alone in any area of your life where you could be in alignment instead? In our family or in our workplace, is our aim clearly shared, or are we all flying with different priorities? Here's a good one. What would alignment look like at my home or in my office? And when we are leaders, whether it's at home or in the office, are we able to take a step back? And can we do it gracefully? Do we trust others enough to rotate leadership? You know, are our words like the geese? Are they encouraging and strengthening those who are in the front? How many times have we thought that our boss has no idea what he's doing? Have we ever thought that, well, he's the leader and he's carrying a lot of responsibility, maybe I should support him? When someone is carrying responsibility, do we support them or do we just silently judge them? And my last question is, if someone is struggling, do we add pressure or do we actually go the extra step and uplift? So these are just some questions that, you can think about throughout the day tomorrow and see if you can actually shift yourself from this me mentality to a we mentality. Right? So now, what touches me deeply in all of this is how the birds, as I described, they do all this instinctively. All these 10 questions I read, they do that naturally. Cooperation just comes instinctively to them. They don't live at home with a family. They don't attend work meetings. They don't negotiate roles. They don't have to protect their positions. They just simply align. They don't have to choose. They just do it. But we, as human beings, we must choose. We have to choose alignment. We have to choose alignment consciously. And that's where our growth will begin, right? When a group of souls make that choice together and make that shift together, the collective power will grow and it will multiply, and you'll start to see magic all around you. So, togetherness is basically not automatic, okay? It's a conscious choice. It's a choice to align, a choice to support, a choice to replace blame with solution. It's a choice to let go of me and expand into we. And here's an even deeper truth, that we cannot create togetherness outside if we are fragmented inside. So think about that. Unity for a group can only happen when there's unity within the self. So if my thoughts are scattered and, I'm having all these negative thoughts, my ego is inflated, my heart is defensive, and, when I'm in this we conscious state of mind, there's no way that I will have unity within me. And when you have unity within me, it's very easy to move into this soul conscious state of mind that you must be hearing every Tuesday in these sessions, right? Unity has to be within in order to be soul conscious. When I remember who I am as a peaceful, stable child of the one Supreme Father, then togetherness is automatic. Togetherness is natural. We become all-inclusive. People will just gravitate to us. So before we build unity outside, we have to experience that unity inside. And so with that, I think we can move into a nice meditative experience, right? Let's gently allow the body to become still. Allow the hands to relax. Allow the shoulders to soften. And allow your breath to settle into a soft rhythm. Just as a family or a team pauses before beginning something important, I pause within. I withdraw my attention from the outside world. My roles, my responsibilities, my conversations. I withdraw from all of them, and I return to my true self. I am a soul. A tiny point of living light, seated in the center, in the forehead. Peaceful, aware, present. Before I can experience I must experience clarity within me. So let's check gently. Are my thoughts aligned or slightly scattered? Are my feelings calm? Or carrying negative reactions? Am I judging? Just check. Make yourself aware of the quality of your thoughts. And now, bring one simple thought. I am a peaceful soul. I am not my role. I am not my title. I am a being of peace. And as this awareness settles in, the inner noise begins to quiet. The need to prove, the need to defend, the need to compare, they all softly dissolve. I don't need to compete. I don't need to dominate, because I am complete. I am full. I am steady. Now I go a little deeper. myself. I am a child of the Supreme Father, the one source of peace, love, power, and wisdom. I turn my awareness upward now, beyond this physical world, to a radiant star of spiritual light, the Supreme Father, the ocean of peace. In His presence, I feel safe, accepted, and unconditionally loved. In His company, there is no reason to compare. There's no hierarchy. There's no insecurity. Just belonging. His rays of light gently fill me. Strength returns. Clarity returns. Dignity returns. I am stabilized in self-respect. Now from this fullness, I gently expand my awareness. I look all around me, and I see many souls, each as a point of light. Each carrying their own journey, their own responsibilities, their own efforts, just like me. Different personalities, different strengths, different sanskars, but the same original nature. Peace, love, purity, power. We are not separate beings competing against each other. We are spiritual siblings, children of one Supreme Father. Different roles, but all from one origin. have different expressions, but we all share one purpose. Now let's visualize together all of us points of light together in one space. Not as bodies, not as positions, not as roles, but as luminous beings of light. Let's notice the light within each other, one by one, like stars in the night. Our lights begin to align. We're creating a field of collective vibrations, collective brightness. The atmosphere feels lighter, stronger. This is collective consciousness. Now together we hold one thought, a shared thought. We are instruments of peace. With this thought, the vibration multiplies. What one soul created, many souls can amplify. Just like birds flying further together, we are moving in one direction, aligned in aim, aligned in intention, aligned in God's remembrance. We are a network of souls. And we are in a spiritual formation. Moving together. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Okay, so can we use our power of togetherness?
Very good.
Yes, that means you will?
Very nice.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining. Are there any questions?
Do you have a YouTube for like you teaching these ones?
It is on YouTube. It's on bknj.org.
bknj.work. Okay.
Every week, every Tuesday session is posted on YouTube. You can hear the recordings there. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Sister,
Yes,
I have a question,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
sure.
So you mentioned that like the scattered thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the scattered thoughts in which way? Like, scattered thoughts means, you have a thoughts for your work, for family, for your goals, or scattered thought means, you are just thinking for particular thing in a negative ways, or like, like something, confused way. Is it something, can you clarify
Yeah,
on that?
so scattered thoughts are basically those thoughts that don't have any meaning or importance to them, and they fill most of our day, right? These are the kind of thoughts that are not going to make a difference, but yet we're having those thoughts. And
Like a waste thoughts.
yeah, okay, so I wasn't sure if you took the course. So you know that the different types of thoughts that we have. So exactly, a
Okay.
scattered thought is a waste thought.
Waste thought.
And
Okay.
and scattered meaning, like, what does the word scatter mean? Like when you throw,
It's random.
and it's just everywhere, right? It's just scattered.
Exactly.
It's a mess. It's basically a mess. You don't want your mind filled with messy, scattered thoughts. You want clarity. You want organized. You want defined, right? So it all comes back to having purpose and aim. What is the purpose?
Exactly.
What is the aim? Does that thought align with that? Right?
So I want to just jump in with a quick question because I know we're all wrapping up, but I feel it's pretty relevant. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
from there?
can. I can.
Yeah. So I really, don't typically join the session, but I was pleased to do that today, and it's more of a comment than a question. So I'm going to put it out to you, and maybe you can meditate on it and think about your response.
Okay.
So, this is all about collective action, collective thought, being in alignment. Okay. So the key word being collective. But if we were to flip this to the negative, what do we do when there is negative collective action
Yeah.
out of wherever it's coming from, whether that be hatred, whether that be insecurity, whether it be protecting one's perceived domain, wherever it's coming from, the lower instinct, you can also have collective negative energy.
100%.
And right now and that's my that's more, as I said, more of a comment that I wanted to add to the discussion to see, that we recognize that, like in life, there's good and bad, that there's, collective positivity, but there's a real question as to how do we confront, even if we are, how do we respond, even if we are loving souls, to collective hatred, okay?
So
it
your
could be out of
your comment is extremely valid, and it's a reality, and it's what's happening more and more. If you go back to when you were a child, whatever many years ago, the energy was not as heavy then as it is now. The energy was not as negative, filled with hatred and anger back then as it is now. So that's proof of your comment is correct, that there is a obvious collective negative energy that is growing, and it's feeding off of others' negativity, and it's becoming bigger and bigger, and we see it because we know what's happening in the world, particularly what's happening here in our country. And so that all the more reason for us to do this practice of changing from me to we. It has to start from me. I have to be the one that's grounded in my positive, pure feelings, even if the opposite party is filled with nothing but hatred and anger. And it's disgusting. I know what's happening out there, but we can't lose sight of who we are. We have to stay firm. We have to continue being what we're supposed to be. And eventually, it will touch and inspire someone next to you. And it will multiply. Just like the example of the geese. It will multiply. We just have to stay firm. Don't cave in to the negativity. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think that's great. I wasn't necessarily referring to the world or anything on a level of, world politics. I even meant, it could be to an individual. You could have
Yes.
someone inciting hatred. And now in this legal context, that's usually got a certain legal connotation, but I didn't mean it like that. I meant it in, layman's jargon, inciting negative feelings towards a person.
Right.
That could be on a personal level, and that could be collective action, and that could be very harmful for the person. And then you have those around being silent, supporting it. And again, it could be out of stupidity or whatever, lack of knowledge. I won't call it stupidity, lack of knowledge, or what lack of understanding, whatever it is. But there is a potential, and I don't say this on the world level or in terms of, anything on the world stage, just in terms of you have group activity, collective negative action, negative thoughts, negative agendas towards an individual, and that's an extremely toxic, low-level,
Yes.
damaging thing to do, which needs to be recognized for what it is. And I think it's so damaging when people don't call it out and they allow
Right.
a person to be victimized, they allow a person to be harmed, they allow a person to be falsely accused, they allow a person to be injured
Right.
at every level.
Right.
I feel that that's something that in terms of elevating consciousness, people need to say, hey, I am elevated. I stand for certain things. And one of those things is that I'm not going to allow another individual to be on
Right.
the receiving end of collective
Right.
negative energy. I'm not going to be part of this. So
Right.
I think I've said enough on the topic.
Thank you. No, I appreciate your feedback. That's very, very inspiring to hear that there are people like you out there that are willing to help make that change. So thank you. Okay. Good night, everyone. Om
Thank you,
Shanti.
sister.
Thank you.
Beautiful examples.
Thank you, sister.
Thank
It was
you.
really
Thank
nice.
you.
Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Thank you. Om Shanti.
Shanti.
Good
Om
night.
Shanti.
Good night.
Om Shanti.